Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of the Top Cut Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. My name is Sunny. I'm here with my co-host Caleb.
Hello.
And before we get too far in, we want to take a moment, do all of our plugs, get that out of the way. That way we can get into the real meat of today's episode. So, a huge thank you to all of our patrons: Austin Johnson, Kane Martin, Damian Zink, Marshawn Jones, Master of Isa, Mr. Herbies, Witchcrafter Main 2022, AD, Aaron Gardner, Anthony Lila. Appaloosa is a floodgate. Listen, I don't know who you are, but we're not friends, whoever you are. Appaloosa is not a floodgate. It's a discussion for a different time. For those that don't know, you have to join our Discord server. It's been quite the debate for many months now.
It's a meme.
It's annoying. Dank Nugs again, now with Dino DNA, Mountain Man, Myth Oceanus, Owen Alvarado, Pig, Rudolph, Sneaky Links, Chris Myers, MBT's Hard Leg, Ray Powell, Slaking It Up, Sunny Sweet, and Zyphorus. Thank you, all but one of you, for your continued support of the podcast. We really appreciate most of it. But if you're interested in supporting us on Patreon, you can find the link to that in the description down below. As little as $1 to get your name shouted out in the podcast. And if you are interested in supporting us at no extra cost to yourself, you can find our TCG Player affiliate link in the description down below. Just click on it and then do your shopping as normal, and we will get a small percentage back. Costs you nothing extra, and it just supports the podcast generally. So, in addition to all of that, you can also find us in Discord. Our Discord will be in the link down below. Starting this coming Thursday, so 6 days from today, because this will air on Friday. Starting on Thursday, we will be hosting remote duel locals every Thursday in the server. They'll be free to enter. If you top one of our locals, you'll earn an invite to an invite-only tournament that will be hosted later in the year with prizing. So
that is March the 17th.
Yeah, that's the date of the first locals. Okay, yeah. So free remote duel locals in our server every Thursday. And on today, the day of the podcast release, if you're listening to this, you can go onto Imperium Duelist right now and you can find our new playmat. It is up for sale. It is live today. Go check it out. Go to, we'll put a link in the description down below directly to our playmat. But huge thank you to Imperium Duelist for getting that playmat design on their website and putting it out there for sale. And a huge thank you also to Abyss, that is her screen name, that's what she goes by on Twitter and on Discord, for the artwork. It is awesome. We love it. So, and I think that's it. Oh, you can find us on Twitter at Top Cut Podcast. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm done with the plugs.
So before we do anything else real quick, I do want to say, we know about the new cards. We're not going to talk about them today. We have something a little more important.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them next episode.
Yeah, so the new Labyrinth archetype, and I think there's one or two other little Lady of Lament cards and another card for the Mr. Rune archetype.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next episode. We have something a little more important than that.
Yes. So, without further ado, we do want to introduce our guest on today's episode. Welcome so much, Mr. Hani. How are you doing today, bud?
How's it going, guys? Happy to be on here and have the opportunity to get into this with you guys.
Epic. That is awesome. So, for those that don't know, Hani is a extremely high-level duelist. He has numerous event tops. He has, I think, one YCS win or two?
One
YCS win. But how about this? Why don't you walk us through your credentials? Because I don't know them as well as you do.
Oh, I don't even know them as well. So hold up. I have to pull it up on my Metafy.
Yeah, sure.
Honestly, after a while, it's just like...
Yeah. It kind of runs together, huh? So, and for those that don't know, Hani is a coach on Metafy, and you will be able to find the link to his Metafy coaching in the description down below. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll definitely give y'all the plug. So if any of y'all need coaching, I am down. I really do enjoy it. So, I teach, up and coming players. I teach people that want to get seriously into the game and want to get to the highest notch of playing. I teach pretty much any type of play style. So if you guys are interested, for sure check that out. But for my credentials, I do got the list now. I actually have them all in order. So I topped YCS Dallas in 2017. I topped YCS Secaucus. I got 6th place at YCS Secaucus in 2018. I got 6th place at NAWCQ 2018. I got 8th place at UDS Vegas. I got 8th place at YCS Atlanta. I got 8th place at YCS Portland. I got top 16 at YCS Niagara. I got 1st place at YCS Peru. I got 32nd place at YCS Pasadena. I got 8th place at UDS Tulsa. Top 16 at YCS Vegas. Top 4 at the remote dual YCS. And I got 32nd at YCS Remote Vegas, which was the most recent one.
Very first, I think.
Yep, I got 32nd. Yep.
Yeah, top 32. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
What was that? 13?
13 various tops.
13
Yeah.
premium event tops. That is amazing.
Yep.
While I was sitting there listing them off, I was sitting there just.
Yeah,
on my
Caleb
fingers.
was like counting them off on his fingers, like, holy that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly crazy. It was it's been a journey for sure, you know. Definitely a lot of hours got put into that. So
Yeah, you flew all the way to Peru to go win a YCS?
yeah, it was actually the craziest experience for me. So
We have time if you want to talk about it.
oh yeah, well, so going down to Peru, I was pretty much been playing like nonstop. I was on Dueling Book, and I pretty much grinded from 0, like my rating from 0 all the way to number 1. I pretty much created an alt account, got on there, and I grinded all the way to number 1. And the reason why I do that is because it's just the best way of playtesting, and to just get on Dueling Book and start from the bottom it all the way to the top. It's the greatest way, because in the beginning you verse very odd decks in the beginning. Like you verse like random decks that you would probably like never ever see. But the thing is, like, you get to learn about like these random decks that people like might play like one day. And you just get to learn a lot, like grinding through the whole entire ladder of Dueling Book. And then soon as you get to I want to say like the top 100, it starts to get like pretty like challenging. You get to start versing like people that like have a good understanding of like what to do and like how the average person would play if you go to an event. So you pretty much just like get to verse the average player, which you'd like verse at like any event, right? So that's like the main thing like that I like try to grasp while playing. So I pretty much just know like what to do when I go to an event, because that's what you're gonna see once you get to the top 100 of like the ladder. Like you're gonna see like decks that you're gonna see at events. So you pretty much get to like play test against those type of decks, and grinding all the way to number 1. It's super hard. It's super challenging. It's not as easy as people think. People just think, oh, if you just put in like a good amount of time into your day doing it, you'll get to number 1. Well, like, yeah, you have to put a good chunk of time. Like, it's not like, oh, I could do this for two hours a day and it's done. No, you have to like grind, grind.
Right.
And to get to number 1,
Especially-
it's hard.
Yes.
It prepares you for an event. So like when you go to an event, you know every scenario. Like that's what it does. Like you know every scenario, because if you played that much Dueling Book, you're gonna know the scenario when it happens in real life. And like that's why I like playing online, and that's how I got like to where I am, is because I played online. The first couple of years when I played, I pretty much just read the card pool, looked into the past of the game. I pretty much watched every single video that there was, like from the past in the game, and then just played Dueling Book or Dueling Network at the time as well. So I did play on DN before it became Dueling Book, and people like wouldn't know that because they only started hearing my name recently in the last like I want to say 4 years. But before that, people didn't really know who I was, because I wasn't really playing IRL. I was just pretty much just a kid just at home, like on the computer, seeing like how the game pretty much got to where it was at. And as soon as I caught myself up with the knowledge and the history of the game, is then when I started taking the game seriously.
The original DB grinder.
Yep. So I grinded Dueling Book nonstop before getting to Peru. I just wanted to give you guys a backstory on why I did that.
Right.
It's because it prepared me the most for the event, or for any event. Like, I try to do this for a majority of my events, and honestly, this was like the first event I did it and went like try to go to number 1 rated. I did it with my friend Kamal. We both played a lot. We played together. He was currently banned at the time, so he couldn't play, but I pretty much played with him, and even though he was banned, he still was playing the game. He still enjoyed it, and me and him pretty much grinded the ladder together, and we theoried the deck together, and we pretty much came up with this Orcus deck going into that event. And going into the event, I had my friend Arnold, who hadn't played in literally 6 months, and he didn't play at all for 6 months. He played 2 games on Dueling Book with me. He played his Sky Striker deck against my Orcus deck. I scraped him, like just smacked him up. And he pretty much was just like, yeah, I'm going to play your deck. And then pretty much flew all the way to Peru after not playing for 6 months, no testing at all. Okay? Have him flying all the way to Peru. And I'm pretty much like, he's pretty much playing this tournament on a whim. He's one of my teammates, because this YCS that I won was a 3v3. Okay? And I had my friend Christian Urena, who was originally playing Orcus. He played it at YCS London, but he didn't do too well with it. There's a few reasons why. He made a couple changes to a list that I sent him, not the correct changes, and he pretty much thought the Orcus deck wasn't the correct choice. He was actually going to choose Thunder. But later on, like throughout the tournament, or later on throughout like the weekend, he pretty much realized that, this deck isn't the deck, because like I had my friend Arnold and everybody in like pretty much in the house we were staying in playing the Orcus deck that I was been working on, and yeah, like Christian just kept getting scraped by the Orcus deck nonstop, so he switched to a Orcus deck as well that night. We're right back to it, to the version that we were playing. So
you all basically piloted the same deck into the event.
And all last minute. So like my boy Christian Urena switched last minute. Arnold Nadaban switched last minute, or pretty much played the tournament on a whim. He played the tournament on a whim. Like, I'm talking about he hasn't played for 6 months, so he's playing on a whim.
Nowhere.
So, I'm pretty much gonna like, he's sitting at player A, so I'm pretty much just like on his side like the whole day for day 1 and day 2, pretty much trying to walk him through everything, trying to make sure that he's playing correctly. He's asking me a million questions. Like, it was crazy. He's asking me like a million questions during my match. I'm playing 2 matches at once pretty much with my boy Arnold. So
shout out to Arnold if you're listening. We appreciate you.
So very, very challenging. Arnold's very good though. So like he'll pick up the play very quickly. So like after a few rounds, he started catching on to things, and he was doing things on his own. And but the first couple rounds, it's rocky. So
yeah,
very challenging stuff. So and going into this event, I'm the most prepared for it. My teammates aren't so prepared, and flying into this event, I start having some issue like with my legs, and pretty much like I'm getting blood spots all over my legs, and I'm honestly just like scrambling, like, bro, like this never happened. I don't know if it's an allergic reaction or something. No clue, And this is this is on my way to Peru,
Wow.
And I'm pretty much just like, wow, this is like really bad, but like there's nothing I can do right now. I'm just gonna have to continue. And like I'm here in Peru, I have no contact, can't get to a doctor, know nobody in Peru. My friend's from Peru, but he's like, dude, I don't know what we're gonna do. And the next day I go to day 1, pretty much the Friday, pre-reg of the event. And then like a few doctors come check, like few Yu-Gi-Oh doctors pretty much check in on me, and pretty much from there, like we were unsure what it was, but like pretty much if I was standing for a long period of time, my legs were hurt. So pretty much I got assigned seating for that whole event.
Wow.
And then pretty much got assigned seating for like literally every other event after that as well, because like the issue didn't stop until like literally like after COVID hit. Like the issue just stopped. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was an issue that I was dealing with, honestly, and it was kind of crazy. Don't know what it was. Still don't know what it is till this day.
Glad it's gone though, huh?
Yeah. I went to multiple doctors. Went to specialists, and I went to the specialist for like legs, and pretty much like there's like 10 doctors in the room, and they're just like, yeah, well, we want you to come back for like an experiment where you go into this room and you walk around for about an hour, and we pretty much see what the reaction to your legs are. And then pretty much COVID hit, and that never happened, and that was the end of that. And then it just went away. So I was just like, okay.
Jeez.
Nice. So
Hey.
so all that's happening, like this thing with my legs happening, literally first time while I'm in Peru, scrambling, teaching my friend how to play his deck, or play the deck, period, mid-event, and it was just a crazy experience. And yeah, we ended up going undefeated in Swiss and then undefeated in Top Cut and winning the whole event, and that was it. So
Dang,
I
that's
mean,
legendary.
Talk about overcoming adversity. Jesus.
like I'm talking about, it was insane. It was insane. Like that weekend was crazy to me. So I mean, yeah, like it was definitely just a wild weekend for sure. Like to me, that I think like that was probably just one of the most wildest weekends, and I won like the weekend. It was just so crazy.
Well,
I was like, okay, in Peru, all in a different country. So
yeah,
I'm like,
in
nice.
a different hemisphere.
Yeah, so I'm like, nice. This is wild.
So that kind of actually, something you said when you were talking about that kind of made me think about one of the questions we actually wanted to ask was, you kind of mentioned that you were talking to Christian Urena, and he was saying that he felt that Thunder Dragon was the correct deck to play for an event when it actually wasn't, things like that. So it kind of makes me wonder, do you think that there is an exact correct deck choice or a correct way to build a deck? Because I know that there's kind of two schools of thought. There's the one school of thought, which is that there is a, the word, like the keyword there is correct, that there's like a correct deck with a correct build and a correct choice.
Yeah, you're running these exact 40 to 60 cards.
All right,
And if you're not running those exact cards, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
No, okay, so exact cards, I wouldn't say per se, because there's always going to be a difference, and like I don't think that like exact cards matter too much, but what does matter, I do believe, is the deck choice that you choose to play at the event. And yeah, I think there is a correct deck to play at an event, because there's always a deck that's better than the other, in my opinion. And there's certain formats where that doesn't apply to. And right now, currently in Yu-Gi-Oh, that's this format that we're in currently. Like right now, there is no best deck, in my opinion. There's multiple good decks that accomplish the same thing. And like right now, it's pretty much like Scythe DPE, or my deck doesn't lose to droplets. My deck ends on a big board, and my deck's playing Rites of Hermasia, and my deck's playing Fiber X to do the combo. My deck's playing DPE plus Dagda to set Scythe. Like these are all the same decks in different forms. Like all of them right now are just like that. And then there's someone that's just as wild as me, and we play something totally different that no one expects, right? Like we play a deck that's 15 hand traps plus a really good engine, and that's what is like a correct choice per se, as you were speaking about. That's a correct choice, because I didn't put it on a dice. I didn't put it on a roll. In this format, you're putting on the dice, you're putting on the roll when you play these combo decks. when everybody's playing these combo decks, because every deck is accomplishing the same thing. So every deck is a dice roll right now. And if you can take a look at the format, you see that every deck right now pretty much gets hard stopped by 2 hand traps. And sometimes they open a good enough hand that plays through 2 hand traps, but the odds of that happening are very slim. And like to see that happen, like to know that, you have to play like a good amount. But like once you play a good amount, and you could realize that that's how the format's pretty much shaped. So what me and Pac try to do is play more like consistent engine, because these decks right now aren't engines. They're just like piles thrown together. It's like Brave engine plus DPE engine plus my third engine.
Right.
And it's just a pile of cards that like don't work together per se. Just pretty much throw your hand on the board and you're just like, beat this. And if you get interrupted, it's just like, okay, now I'm playing a pile of just random cards. Literally, like that's what the base deck is. Like if they get interrupted on their first like 2 plays, then they're just playing just a bunch of random pile of like cards that try to make like interesting cards in the extra deck, like Verte and Dagda.
Right.
So like it's and Fiber, like their whole deck is surrounded by making Verte and Fiber, and like those are their lines. Like that's their deck. Verte and Fiber is their deck. Like there is no engine. And like this in the Sword Soul deck and the DD deck that Pac played, they both had like a legitimate engine where there's recovery plays and there's lines later on in the game, and you can outgrind your opponent. As in these other decks, that just doesn't happen as often. And
these other decks feel less like decks with like a consistent and cohesive strategy, and because when you play the Sword Soul Tenny deck, I'm just gonna be honest, while we're sitting here, I've got a extremely similar list to the one that you piloted to top 32, because I'm just gonna be honest, I can't afford the adventure package, and I've got this Sword Soul Tenny deck in front of me, and it's just like, if every hand feels like there's a plan, right? Every hand feels like there's like an actual outline thing that I want to do, not just with my extra deck, but also with the main deck. There's just no other way to put it. There's a plan. Whereas these pile decks, it feels like their plan is not to play 40 really good cards. Their plan is to play 15 really good cards in the extra deck and a bunch of cards to get them into the extra deck.
Yes, that's exactly what the format is. Like they're just like trying to make the card in the extra deck in the most consistent way possible. Like there's people that are playing like the E-Telly package with the punk card because that makes Hulk of Fibrax by itself, right? So and like people are playing like cards that get to Cherubini because Cherubini dumps the adventure chick, and like people are playing ways to get to Fiber faster. Like that's what the game plan is for like the majority of the people. That's the format. Like that's the format that we're in right now. So what my goal is to play a deck that can play the most amount of hand traps in like the best engine, and I thought that was Sword Soul, and Pac thought that was DDD. I thought they were both great choices, and the third choice to me was Dragon Link. That was the third choice if I was gonna play a deck for the tournament, and the reason I decided on Sword Soul is because the deck does so much when you when you break it down. The deck actually does a lot, like in a much simpler way. Like everyone's doing like these 10-minute combos. Well, like Long Yawn plus Moye is literally draw 2 cards plus 4 interruptions. So
literally.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, I've been playtesting against Caleb, and it's just this deck is crazy. It's like you open at least 1 hand trap basically every hand, and you open 2 hand traps like half the time or more, and then you always have like 2 to 3 combo pieces. It's crazy.
And here I am sitting with my hand full of go, and it just goes right into a brick wall usually.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I was aiming for. I was not trying to brick. And I was trying to play the most consistent deck in the room, and everyone's playing like 8 to 10 bricks in their deck, or even more in their decks. And I'm just like, yeah, there's no way I'm doing that, because like I played a PPG like 2 weeks before the YCS, and I lost in top 4 because I purely bricked. And the last event I played in, I purely bricked as well. And like this event, I was just like, I'm not trying to do this again. I'm just not trying to brick in top cut. And crazy enough, I
Man.
didn't brick in top cut this time. Like I didn't brick in top cut this time. And I didn't lose to anything I thought I should have lost to. I don't think I made an incorrect play this time. I just think that this time variance got the best of me. And like, that's like the craziest thing I would ever say, because I can tell you right now that there was 11 events that I was in top cut and I either lost to myself or I bricked. But there's only 2 events I can say that never happened. It's obviously the one event that I won, and then this event where I just lost to pure variance. Like, this is the first event I could ever say that. Other than that, I would tell you that I would have messed up or I misplayed, because down the line, that's the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! You either mess up or you hard brick, and hard brick rarely ever happens. Like people can say like, oh, I bricked and it was over. That rarely ever happens. It's usually like you mess up.
Unless it's incorrect deck building, right?
Yep. Or incorrect deck building, because like bricking leads to incorrect deck building majority of the time.
Like the root issue of bricking is the deck building.
Yeah. So,
Man,
yeah,
and I thought, man, you said 5 to 6 bricks, and I thought I was crazy for running 3.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I hate running bricks. But dude, there's a lot of bricks in people's decks currently. If you could just break it down, you could just count them all out. It's crazy. But yeah, this is the first time I've ever lost a variance, and honestly, it was just meant to be for this event. I knew Paulie was winning the event, honestly, as soon as he pretty much made top cut. I spoke about it for years, literally for years, no exaggeration, for years. I've known Paulie pretty much since the 4 years I've been playing competitively. We've been speaking to each other consistently, and he pretty much I always just told him, dude, the moment you make top cut at a YCS, you're gonna win, because the amount of times he had bubbled, or he had almost made it there, or he was 1 win away from making top cut, it just never happened. It was never his day. He never got there, but he always used to top these big regionals or these ARGs or these other events that weren't YCSs or big events. So I knew that one day, whenever he made it to top cut, it would just be his. It would be his day. It would literally be his day, and it was. It was, and I knew for a fact it was. After I lost, I was like, damn, it really was, because I have never in my 4 years of playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Lost to pure variance. Just pure variance. It was crazy. His hand was picture perfect. I'm talking about it's Gamma Nibiru, Red Rose Dragon, Rights, Magician Souls, in a 60 card deck. That's just picture perfect.
Yeah, that it doesn't get much better,
bruh.
So, and I felt like I played that game out of my mind, and he also just played out of his mind. So it was crazy. I played that game to the best of my ability. I'm talking about, I had 3 sources of interruptions, and I just couldn't beat it. His hand was just so good. Just so good, way too good. So
some of the other questions that we want to get into, you've actually talked a little bit about, but we kind of want to just ask it more directly. That way we can get more of a direct answer. So when you're going into an event, how do exactly you choose the deck to play? So I know this time you said you chose consistency and over maybe that incredible power ceiling. Is that something that you always factor in, or is it sometimes do you go for the power ceiling?
No,
you know what I mean?
I always factor in consistency. And that's the number one thing I factor in, actually, is consistency. And I'm not a very big fan of bricks in my deck. And that's why you've seen me not play the top deck this format, is because the amount of bricks. I feel in a combo deck, it's not very good to have multiple bricks, because your deck is trying to accomplish an end board. And if you play multiple bricks, you lose to single interruptions sometimes, or sometimes you just pass turn. And I feel that happens a lot this format, where your hand's really good sometimes, or your hand's really bad. So when I'm trying to build a deck, it's pretty much just depending on the format. Like this format, I would go for a more like control based, like, or a more like mid-range deck, like Sword Soul, where you're playing multiple hand traps plus a good engine. And then like in a format, let's rewind to 2019 YCS Portland, where I played Going Second Orchest, where everybody in the room is playing like Thunder Dragon.
Right.
They're playing Thunder Dragon, like combo, Danger, Thunder Dragon, Danger. Okay, and their end board is Diablos, rip a card out your hand, Levianeer, rip a card out your hand, a rank 8, like Hope Harbinger, Hieratic Seal, a Hot Red. And at the time, people also ended on Galatea with Crescendo on the board because they were playing that package in their deck as well.
Everybody was.
So yeah, I decided to go second that event, and everybody's playing that. And it worked out. I literally won every match against Thunder. Why? Because I decked out every single one of my opponents with a card called Mystic Mind. A card that nobody expected. A card that nobody respected at the event at all. I'm talking about there was nobody playing it out. And if there was a single out, it was the random guy playing Imperial Order in his main deck. But 7 times out of the tournament, I had decked out my opponent at that event. Why? Because I made the read. Nobody was playing Mystic Mind. Going second was the move because everybody thought going first was the move, and it was just the craziest like turn of events. Like it was crazy. And the way I lost in top 8 is because I tossed. I misplayed so bad. I tossed out. Like I pretty much tossed out the tournament. I think that tournament was literally meant to be for me, but I had tossed in top 8, so that's what it is. The deck was insane. If I can go back to that format, I would play it again. Deck was literally insane. I'm talking about baits out interruptions, puts Mystic Mind on the board. Or that's not the only game plan I had. Bait all my opponent's interruptions, make Phoenix or Nightmare Cerberus bait out the last interruption, and then turn that into Nightmare Mermaid, which literally summoned any Orcust out my deck and allowed me to do full Orcust combo and gain advantage that way and win. So...
yeah, Orcust.
I recognized Orcust was the best deck at YCS or not UDS Indy because I had just came back from Lebanon. I had very little play testing. I played the Danger Thunder Dragon deck on a whim at that event. I disliked it a lot. I looked around the room the whole day. I read this card called Vishuda. I read this card called Vishuda, which is now played in the Tenny deck, but in that burial an Orcust card, I get to do the window lock sometimes with Dingirsu. I was just like, this is just too good.
That's hilarious. I see. We came into the game around the release of Toon Chaos, so like we missed all of Eternal format. We weren't around for any of that.
Yep. So I made the read like crazy for that event, and I am talking about like crazy. Every round I went into, it was with the quickness. I'm talking about I went X1 that whole event, I lost in Top Cut, but it was just such it was like a walk in the park because when I made such a good read that like I was breaking through any board that was put up, any board. You name it, any board that was put up, I was breaking through it. I was winning the game. And like the amount of advantage the Orcust cards brought was absurd. And I realized Orcust was the best deck. And I played it from that event all the way till Pasadena. And I had gotten a W. I had gotten 3 tops with it. It was just insane. So technically I had gotten 4 tops and 1 was a win with, or 3 tops and 1 was a win. So 4 tops total with Orcust.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've talked a lot now about, the main deck. Let's talk. Let's talk for a second about the other 30%, like 30 some odd percent of the deck. The other 15 cards, the side. How do you personally like go about like deciding what cards need to go to the side, what cards I should probably actually main, in reference to like hand traps and stuff? What hand traps should I just not run this time?
Things like that, especially considering 2/3 of, well, it shouldn't be 2/3 of your matches, but or 2/3 of your games, but realistically, as much as 2/3 of your games could be played after side decking, so it makes it so critical, right?
Absolute best case scenario, half your games are sided.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, this is how I usually go about side decking, because this is definitely the hardest part about Yu-Gi-Oh for pretty much anybody in the game. That's I coach on Meta-Fi, so the number one question I get asked on a daily basis is, how do I side deck? And it's the hardest one to answer, because like there's a lot that goes into side decking, and when you're when you're building your deck, what are your best matchups is pretty much like what I try to figure out when I'm playing my deck. Okay, my best matchup is this. So when I'm side decking, I need to work on X matchup. So after that, I have to see what card beats that matchup, and then I decide what card to put in my side deck. So like if I'm in a format where I believe that Eldritch is going to be an issue, then I'll probably play 3 Lightning Storm and then Red Reboot in my deck, in my side deck, correct? But if I notice that people are playing the Heavenly Sky Prison in their deck, in their Eldritch deck, then I'm probably going to take those cards out and put multiple Cosmic Cyclones plus Red Reboot, because now I know people are playing Heavenly Sky or Heavenly Prison in their deck. So that's how you want to go about it. And then let's say this format specifically, oh well, everybody's playing combo, so what did Pac do? Look at Pac's side deck from this event. He didn't play any spell and trap removal. Why didn't he play any spell and trap removal? Because he thought there was not going to be any spell and trap decks. And what was he correct about? There wasn't any spell and trap card decks. He only versed combo. Versed combo.
Yeah, I don't think if you go back and watch his deck profile and watch his tournament breakdown, I don't think he played a single control deck the entire event.
Yeah.
Which is surprising.
So he made the correct read. He read that nobody was going to play trap cards. He read that everybody was going to play combo. So he just played a bunch of cards for the combo decks. He played almost every single hand trap there was.
Right.
Literally, it's just making the read. It's making the correct read. Looking at the format, knowing what your hardest matchups are going to be, and when you're side decking, you should be thinking of the cards that you want to take out of your deck and put into your deck, while you're side decking. And then if there's an uneven amount of cards and you're like, well, man, I really want to take this card out my deck because it's not good in this matchup, and you have the extra deck or you have the side deck slots to put an extra card in for that matchup, then throw an extra card in for that matchup and then make it to where your side patterns are better. And I literally did that for this event. I played 1 Bell in my side deck, which I never really do. But the reason I did it is because, I need this card against Prank Kids. It's not that bad against Prank Kids. It's also not that bad against the Brave decks, the Water Enchantress decks. So I'm you know what? I'm gonna side this extra one, this extra Bell in, and it helps with my side pattern when I'm siding in against that specific matchup.
So what about when you're siding out? Because a lot of times I find myself where I'm like, man, I've got 8 cards that would be great in this matchup, but I've only got 4 or 5 that I want to pull out, right?
So I rarely try to take out my engine. I rarely do. And I know that sounds crazy, right? What? You rarely take out your engine. So what are you taking out? Your non-engine cards? So in some matchups, yes. In this format specifically, if you look at my deck that I topped with, I played 15 hand traps, and I did the math on the deck. So I knew the math of drawing a hand trap against my opponent was going to be 50% chance to draw 2 and a 90% chance to draw 1. So
Right.
I was okay with those odds for either of the games, game 1, 2, or 3. I was okay with those odds. So majority of the time I was taking out those non-engine cards for other non-engine cards and just having the perfect 15 non-engine cards for that specific matchup. And that's what I was doing the whole tournament. I wasn't taking out a card out of my engine. Like, sometimes I would take a card out my engine if it was really necessary, or I'm like, man, I really want the extra hand traps against this matchup because, like, it might be an issue. Like, I I don't want to get Scythe DPE'd. So, like, I really want to play, like, these extra hand traps in this matchup. So I would take out, like, a circle, like, one circle, because in that matchup specifically, circle doesn't do anything if I'm getting Scythe DPE'd anyways. I take out one Moye because I know, like, my opponent has, like plays Fog Blades and stuff, so I don't want to keep, like, I don't want my starting play to be a normal summon. I'd rather start with a Tenny card.
Makes a lot of sense.
Sometimes I'll take out the one Blackout, or just, like, whatever I felt like was. I mean, like, I feel like sometimes, like, Call by the Grave, like, in certain matchups I'd take out, but, like, in that matchup I kept it in. So in that matchup I would probably just, like, taken out the circle, taken out a Moye, and taking out the Blackout and put in 3 better cards, because, like, those cards don't really, they're good, but I don't really need them that much in that matchup. So
Yeah,
that's how I'd cut. But usually it's cutting my non-engine for engine, or my non-engine for more non-engine is what I usually do. But that's for this deck specifically. In other decks, it's different. Like, there's going to be times where you're playing 9 hand traps in your deck and you're versing another combo deck, and, like, honestly, like, you're gonna want 12 hand traps in your deck because the math changes drastically. 12 hand traps in 40, you have a really good percentage. I could do the math, but I would have to pull out the math, like, the calculator. I use Yu-Gi-Oh! Party, and you could pretty much do the math yourself. And, like, that's what I usually do. I do the math on, like, what the percentage would be if I sided in this many cards, or what the percentage would be if I had this many cards in. So this way, like, now I know going into a certain matchup, I want this percentage of drawing a hand trap. And that's how you're supposed to side deck. Like, it's the math. You know the math. You know the percentage of you drawing the hand trap. If you don't draw it, you know the percentage of you not drawing it. So it's fine. It happens.
Yeah. So before we get too much farther, I want to take just a moment before we forget. I want to do a short ad read. Won't take but just a second, and then we'll get back into the main content. But a huge shout out to our sponsor, ETB Games in Alexandria, Louisiana. They are our locals, and they are, of course, gracious enough to sponsor the podcast. So ETB Games is a wonderful place where you can get all of your trading card game needs for all of the major card games. You can get everything you need for Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Digimon, whatever card game you're playing. You can get your sleeves, deck boxes, singles, sealed product. You can get binders, play mats, whatever. They also have a thriving tabletop gaming community where you can get everything that you need for things like Warhammer, things like D&D, things like Pathfinder, whatever you need. Painted figurines, pre-painted, non-painted figurines, the paint for the figurines, the books to play them, the mats to play on, tables, rooms to play in, everything that you need. You also have a great video game community. They run different tournaments for different fighting games and everything that you can think of, as well as just a great environment. They also run tournaments for all of these card games. So, with that said, be sure to check out ETB Games. Their link is in the description down below. There's also a link to their TCG player page on their website. And let's get back on into the podcast. So, you've talked a little bit about your use of your side decking when it comes to more side deck heavy or more hand trap heavy decks. Because I would say that in some decks, like 9 hand traps would even be a lot. Like, if you go back about 9 months ago now, if you look at that format where it was like the best decks were like Tri Brigade and Drytron, if you look at that Drytron deck, a lot of them were playing like 35 to 37 engine cards a lot of times. You know, their main hand traps were really only the Herald of Orange Lights.
Yep. Because in specific formats, it changes up. And you're absolutely correct. There's formats where you're going to be like, well, you know what? Hand traps really do suck. And you know why? Because there's decks that are so prone to hand traps that it makes them, like, sort of irrelevant. and in those formats, like you would rather play board breaker cards such as Lightning Storm, Droplets, Dark Ruler, no more. And those were the cards that people were playing. In the formats where decks were so prone, like to hand traps, where they're just not even being affected by them, like they're neg ones. And it was just much easier to play a board breaker card and crack your opponent's field. And like that only works out in formats where there's cards that don't have blanket effects. And when I mean blanket effects, I mean cards like Scythe, and I mean cards like VFD. Like those cards are the reason why like those board breaker cards just like suck majority of the time.
Right. So next I want to talk a little bit about the work that most people don't see for these events, which is the playtesting. Because what a lot of people don't see is for every weekend that you spend at a YCS, topping a YCS or a UDS or a PPG event or whatever, there's dozens of hours that go in to playtesting nonstop, learning the format, learning the other decks, learning what cards are good, learning what cards to side deck and when to hand trap, things like that.
Trying out various spice techs to see if they're actually any good.
Right, things like that. So this is kind of a two-part question. So what I'm kind of wondering here is, how much time do you think that you spend on playtesting on like a per week or per month basis? And when you playtest, do you more front load your playtesting or do you back load it, right? So do you playtest more before an event and then kind of take your time? Or do you playtest a ton right before? Yeah.
Okay, those are two very good questions.
Yeah, it was a lot of question to throw at you at once. Sorry about that.
Okay, so for playtesting, what do I do? Well, when I prepare for an event, I pretty much play Yu-Gi-Oh for money, and I play tournaments, and this is the only way I play test, actually. I do not play test against my friends very often. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I play against my teammates. They want to play a couple games. I play. But very often, I do not play my team. I do not play my friends. I usually play people for money. And I play tournaments. And why do I play tournaments? And why do I play for money? Because it makes me take the game way more serious. When there's something on the line, you're taking the game to a whole nother level, and you're trying your hardest to win. And in those games, you learn a lot, because if you won, you could look back at the replay and you could see like why you won. And if you lost, you could look back at the replay and be like, well, like the reason why I lost is because of this, and this. And like you look back at your losses that way. Usually when you're playing for fun, it's just like, oh, we played for fun. It's whatever. I'm done. I'm not even going to think about it. But when you're playing for money, you're you're always wanting to improve, because I don't stop. Like I'll play nonstop. Like I'm talking about, I'll play for money like the first week of a format, and I'll literally lose like a couple $100, and then I'll play like nonstop the next week, and I would win it all back, and I'd win more on top of that, because at that point, it's just like, I just played for this many hours, like learning and trying to get better. And that's what I do. I play for money and I try to get better. I try to get better and I try to get better. And if I misplay, I realize my misplay. I look over the replay and I take accountability for misplaying. And I try not to make those same mistakes at the event. And I learn from my mistakes every single time, because I'm playing for money, or because I'm playing on a tournament and there's something on the line and I'm taking it more serious. And it's like you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At the highest level at all times. And that's pretty much what I try to do. I try to play for something at all times, because that's how I'm going to improve. That's how I'm going to get better. And that's how you're going to learn. And honestly, it's just insane. It sounds crazy, because a lot of people are like, damn, well, I don't have the money to to do that. And I understand that's a factor, but there are free tournaments that people host, and I would try to play in every single free tournament that there is, or because that's what I did when I was starting. When I started as at the age of 14, playing online crazy, even 13, and I played in these free tournaments and I try to get better. I'm talking about, I'm going way back into the past when I was playing literally like tournaments that were free when Beals first dropped, like the Synchro Dark Level 8, like, and I remember that, like playing in free tournaments, playing like a deck that turbo that card out. I remember all that stuff that I used to do back then, and that's how I got better. I tried to play tournaments, and then sooner or later I figured out that there were online tournaments. There were just online tournaments, Facebook tournaments, and now, crazy enough, I run those tournaments now. But before, like I was trying to play in them nonstop. Why?
Right.
Because I was trying to get better. I was trying to first the best, and and at the time there was great players playing online. Like I'm talking about, there was great players playing online, and like eventually, like people just, people just either slowed down or they're not playing as much. Like, I mean, obviously because events like had gotten canceled, but now it's just like pretty much a good online base. It's not like a like top players as before, because before this, like top players used to play like when events were like happening, but now it's more like a big online scene. And like honestly, like I feel like a lot of of players, like even like just top players, are like intimidated to play in those tournaments because there's a lot of like players like in the last like year that have like gained a lot of knowledge and have become really good at the game. And that's like the truth behind like COVID, like has made a lot of players like really good.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and like a lot of players have improved, which is like great. Like I think that's amazing, and like that's the reason why I like running online tournaments, is because you see people like accomplish things and get better, and like people have something to look forward to and to improve. And like honestly, like that's what tournaments do. Like I'm talking about, that's literally what tournaments do, because every person every person that I know now is known because of a tournament, right? Like when somebody gets introduced to me, it's because they did well in a tournament, which is like wild, because like an IRL interaction, like I don't care if you top the tournament, like, but like that's just how the game is. Like everybody just speaks upon people that have top tournaments. So how do people get recognition through tournaments? You play a lot of tournaments. You start off with free tournaments. You grind up. You start playing these $5 tournaments, $10 tournaments. Eventually, you're playing LCSs. You're playing bigger events. You're getting better. You're accomplishing something. You make a goal, and you accomplish that goal, and you beat it until you get to the top. Like, and that's what I did, dude. Played free tournaments. Played like cash tournaments online. Try to win those tournaments. After that, tried to like go to like play other online tournaments and win those. And then after that, I wanted to travel to all these events and play in all these events and win these events. Like it's just motivation. It's literally just the best way of like getting recognition and the best way of playtesting. Like this is literally the best way of playtesting. And like the amount of hours that you put into it is literally, it's literally just, for me, it's probably like, I want to say like for this last event, I rarely put in hours. I'm gonna be honest with you. I rarely put in hours. It was more theorying, and all the hours I did put in was playing for money and playing tournaments. Probably for this one, like I want to say it was majority of like 6 hours plus like a bunch of other tournaments, like IRL tournaments for this last one only, because I rarely had time for this event because I was just so busy with my with my personal life, so I just didn't have that much time. But for the other event that I had topped recently as well, it was the YCS remote. I had gotten fourth in. I had put a lot of hours into that one. I want to say I put in at least like 40 hours, like at least. I want to say at least, maybe even, I don't know, maybe even more. I just know I was playing like ridiculous amount of times for money, like ridiculous. Like I'm talking about Ironmans, 1v1s.
Yeah. And if anybody from Konami is listening, this is all in non-official settings. This is all.
This is all on Dueling Book. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I know it's like, I know some people frown upon it, but like honestly, like it's only frowned upon like I don't even see it like anything wrong with it. It's just I feel like it's just the best way for me to get like better at the game. Like
Sometimes when the
if you're
stakes are
not
the
a type of
highest is when
person
you
to
care the
play
most,
for
right?
money, like that's fine. Like it's understandable. Like you don't need to, but playing for playing in tournaments, dude, like that's something that you should be doing. And like honestly, if you hate it or not, like online tournaments are the move. Like I can't explain this enough. I know some people are gonna be like, well, I hate online. Online is so like it's so annoying. Like you just gotta play and like get used to it, and like you'll enjoy it eventually. If like you actually like play and you actually just like sit down on the computer and not complain about it, you'll probably like actually enjoy it. Because like people will play like the first like 3 games on ladder and be like, oh, rated sucks. Like these people are just like, ugh. It's just like, no, like dude, like you only played them for like a couple a couple matches, and you're complaining because you haven't even reached to like top 100 and like actually enjoyed it, because you versus very good people. I feel like very decent people once you get to top 100, and it becomes enjoyable at that point. But of course, the first couple rounds are hell, but like they're not hell if you're not extremely knowledgeable in the game. Then they're not hell. Like there's a lot to be learned. There's a lot to be learned. I play every time I get into a pretty much a call with one of my students, and we get on when we're coaching, and like we play games on rated, and like we'll play games on rated, and we'll go through the matches, and we'll go through the replay, and we'll watch like what we could have done better, and like there's stuff that you could learn, and you learn rulings, you learn stuff like that. Like that's the stuff that people don't understand. Like that's like a benefit is like learning rulings through interactions,
Right.
like, by playing on DB, because you learn these rulings. When it's automated, you don't learn these rulings. When it's automated, it's just whatever, la 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 la, like the computer's doing everything correctly. But like when you're on Dueling Book and you
La,
get
la,
into
la,
a
la,
judge
la. I
call,
love it.
you know,
Yeah.
like it's real. Like it's like a real interaction. Like now, when you go to an event, you know that ruling. You understand the interaction. Like it's not like there like with automated play, there is some good things. Don't get me wrong. It pretty much makes things super complicated for the basic player. I feel like that's very good. It makes it like pretty much to where it plays itself, dude. Like the game literally plays itself at points. Like I understand that you make the interactions, you make the moves, but like you don't understand the ruling sometimes.
It's a lot
And, like,
faster,
that's an
but that
issue.
doesn't necessarily make it better.
Yep, doesn't necessarily make it better. Like you'll still learn a lot more on Dueling Book because it's all manual.
Yeah,
You'll learn
for sure.
rulings. You'll learn how to play like in the proper way. And it's crazy, and dealing with like it's crazy dealing with like the sharks and the scumbags. Sorry for the language, I forgot, but yeah, dealing with like people like that on Dueling Book, it's like a perfect example when leading to events, because like scenarios like that will happen to you IRL, unfortunately, but like that's the truth.
Yeah.
So
You
like
just gotta, like it prepares you
when
it
you
really
verse
does
these,
prepare you in such a way.
yeah, like it prepares you for like the worst scenarios as well, like because those scenarios do happen in real life. like like it's human interaction. Like there's a text box, you speak to your opponent, you're interacting with your opponent. There's like no other system where you're interacting with your opponent. You're not interacting with your opponent on Master Duel. You're not interacting with your opponent on like these other like automated play systems. Like you're interacting with your opponent on Dueling Book.
Right. So I'm gonna try not to keep you too much longer, because we've had you for like a full hour now, and we do have a couple more questions if you got time. You got time?
Yes, I got time. I'm
Okay,
here.
cool. Awesome. So, there's a couple of things that are a little bit more nuanced that I'll be honest, this might not be the best platform to try to go into these, because there's not really a visual to this, but I think they are kind of important questions, and they get a little bit more into the theory things. But so how do you make a call on whether or not to shotgun an effect? Like, for instance, like you have Lancia in your hand, right? Like, do you wait till they commit to the board for Lancia, or do you wait to, do you just shotgun and standby? Same thing with like DPE with Scythe. Like, do you just do it in standby or do you kind of wait or things like that, right?
Okay. This is the best way I can put this. If I'm versing Dragon Link, I'm not using Lancia until they activate Chaos Space. Or until they use Safer effect. Because I know that they have to do one of those things to accomplish the other, which summon white or black. So they use Safer, they summon it to the board, they tribute it as cost, they add white or black, and then you Lancia them, and they could just be stuck at that point. Or your opponent goes Chaos Space, pitch a dark, add white, and then you Chaos Space or then you Lancia on Resolution. Because now that can potentially make it potentially makes them -1 and pass their turn. Because let's say I shotgun Lancia against the Dragon matchup and they have Safer in hand. Well, now they're probably going to be like, well, I'm just going to summon this Safer and turn it into a Striker Dragon, and then I'll special summon my Tracer out my hand with Boot Sector Launch.
Right.
So, in those matchups, you have to make you have to know what matchup's correct against, which matchup it's not correct against. Now that Desires is now at 1, it's going to be very rare where I'm going to think of being I'm going to shotgun it. Because before it was you know what, I'm going to shotgun it because of Desires. Well, now it's okay, what matchup are you going to shotgun it against? I would shotgun it against Infernoids because they play Extravagance and they play maybe Prosperity and their whole deck vanishes. So I'm you know what, against that matchup, I guess I'll Lancia.
I think that the counterpoint is that in the adventure decks, they can the first move they make can be Water Enchantress because they can, if they have Gamma in hand, they can do something. Which I guess if they have Gamma, they've got it.
In this format, if you're versing Phantom Knights, sure, shotgun it because you're right. They could be playing Water Enchantress.
Yeah,
you're right. You could just shotgun it right then and there. But the issue is with that, is if your opponent knows that knows that you just Lancia'd them, they're gonna play their hand to their best ability to play around it now. Well, as of before, I understand that you just stopped that Water Enchantress, but honestly, in my opinion, I don't know if I would have done it there because I would probably do it once they make Cherubini and Sen, because majority of the time they're gonna have a way to Cherubini, and if they just go for Water Enchantress into Rights and activate Rights, and as soon as they go Griffin effect, I'll just go Lancia. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal because it's whatever at that point, in my opinion. If they had Water Enchantress, they had it, but majority of the time they're probably gonna just have a way to Cherubini, and you could probably Lancia them there for everything. And usually in those scenarios, it's even better because they probably use a Phantom Knight, then they summon a level 3, then they summon Cherubini, then Cherubini sends the Water Enchantress, and then now when you Lancia them, they have Water Enchantress and their Phantom Knight Dead Engrave. It's just pretty good.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
Yeah, I usually getting value out my cards, and I feel that's how I would use my Lancia majority of the time. Try to get as much value as I can as possible. There's I said, some matchups Infernoid you'd probably shotgun it against, but other than that, I just don't know what other matchup you would probably shotgun it against, especially now that Desires is at 1. Before it was man, maybe you do shotgun it because against the Virtual World deck, you'd be forget, I'm going to shotgun it now because they played cards Desires and they banish a lot.
And they can get so much more value off the Desires with an Anyan.
Yeah, so I mean, now it's probably just correct to hold it in majority of the scenarios, I feel.
I feel that kind of probably goes with not just with Lancia, but other cards too, like Scythe DB. Just kind of try to hold it, be a little conservative, and maybe get a little bit more out of it, right?
Yeah, usually you want to be conservative with stuff like that. But if my opponent just didn't hand trap me at all, the whole the whole time, my opponent didn't hand trap me, I'm gonna go for the play. Let's say if I have a way to play around Droplets, I'm gonna play around Droplets. In the Phantom Knight deck, there's a way to play around Droplets and resolve Scythe DP. Then I'm gonna go for it. But if I don't have a way to play around Droplets, I'm not gonna shotgun my DP. Yeah. Let's say I have Break Sword in my graveyard, right? And I have Scythe on the I feel if you see I feel you could just always shape your play up in the Phantom Knight deck to play around Droplets. So I feel that's not a good scenario. So I feel shotgunning it majority of the time with Scythe DP is the move because there's usually ways to play around Droplet. In the other deck they have Herald on the board, but if your only play is Scythe DP, that's your only play, then yeah, I guess I guess you don't shotgun it, but either way you're losing to Droplets. But you don't shotgun it to the fact that you lose to Impermanence. You lose to Impermanence if you shotgun it, so you might as well just not shotgun it because you're just going to lose to Impermanence.
Yeah, it's kind of
or
funny.
gamma,
The
or
things you have
gamma
to go
driver.
into.
Like you really just got to make the reads, because like a lot of the time, like there's some people that would just be like, okay, I'm just gonna shotgun my DPE now and pop my scythe and then summon my scythe and use the effect. Well, now you can just get imperm, or you can get gammaed on the scythe, and that's your only line of play. Well, if you held your DPE, like I would probably wait till my opponent summons a monster, and like majority of the time people would make the mistake of popping the monster and popping your scythe. No, just pop your DPE, pop your scythe, chain block your scythe, because this way you don't get belled. You go chain link 1 scythe, chain link 2 DPE. You can't get belled unless they want to bell your DPE. Then you summon back your scythe, and then now your opponent has a monster on board, so they can't imperm you or gamma you, and then you use the effect of scythe. So in that scenario, you would probably hold it.
You listening, Caleb? Caleb's playing that Phantom Knight with DP and Scythe for our tournament this weekend.
Yeah.
You listening?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm taking notes.
So yeah.
And then, so when you're going into these situations where you kind of have to like make reads and kind of be a little bit more informed about the deck that you're playing against, how do you figure out kind of what hand traps to play around? Not including searched ones, because like I said, Drytron could just search the Herald. Obviously, you're going to play around it at that point, or to the best of your ability. But do you ever just assume like,
you just
okay,
have to make the reads? You have to be like, okay, like this YCS. How many cards are you playing? Is my number one question before starting the duel. Oh,
Yeah.
60? Okay. My opponent has now used a hand trap on me. I have a line that plays straight into Nibiru. My opponent has now used a single hand trap, let's say Ash Blossom or Ogre or one of those, and he has 4 cards in hand and he's playing 60 cards. The odds of him having Nibiru, very slim. I'm just going to go for it. That's usually like I'm just going to put it on better habit, because like math says otherwise. Like I try to do the math sometimes to figure it out, like what's the chances. Let's say like the YCS previous to this, everyone was playing the Sword Soul deck, but guess what? Everyone was playing Tenny cards in their deck. And what conflicts with Tenny cards? Nibiru. So every time I versed the Tenny Sword Soul deck, I wasn't playing like around Nibiru, because like the majority of the players weren't playing Nibiru because it conflicted with their Tenny cards. Yeah. So like it's just like making like the correct read, and sometimes it's like some cards cancel out of cards. Like when your opponent goes Pandemonium, you should know that your opponent cannot activate Nibiru. So like you should be crossing out scenarios. Like there was a really good duel that I had against Shun Ping, not in this YCS, but the YCS previous where I got 4th in. We had played in like round 8, and there was a scenario where he had Ash Blossom to me, and he had an Omen face up, and he had a DPE face up. And I had realized he didn't pop his own DPE. He had popped another card on his field to destroy my card. So I immediately read that my opponent didn't have Nibiru because he kept his DPE face up. Because in any other scenario, you destroy your DPE if you have Nibiru in hand.
Right.
So like right there was an immediate read that he didn't have Nibiru in his hand. So I immediately played around it.
Yeah. I have another one, which is kind of in tune with the combo line thing, and kind of like making the read. Do you have a particular process that you go through in your mind when you decide what combo line to go down with a deck?
I literally go through every line. I go through every line. Like I can't even explain enough. Like I run through every scenario in my head, like before making a move. And it's crazy, and it's hard, to just run through every scenario. But if you play a lot, and you played good enough, you could literally go through every scenario as fast as you can in your head. And today I was playing a money match actually, and I ran through almost every scenario. I had gotten Nibiru'd. And I had played through it. I had summoned Chitana from my hand. I had special summoned it. I had normal summoned Ogre. I had made Yazi, and I Yazi popped my opponent's Nibiru, and I summoned Taye. And I had Adhara and Chitana in graveyard. And I used Taye effect to banish my monk. Because I was like, man, I don't have any more monks in my extra deck. I might as well banish one so I can put it back with Adhara. And I get Ogre. And then I realized, man, there was a scenario where I could have played around Ogre. I had literally just played through Ash Blossom. I played through Ash Blossom, Heraldic Seal, Nibiru. And then at this point, like there was a way to play around Ogre, and I just didn't see it. And it was literally to banish Shatana off of Taye, because the way I summoned Shatana earlier was off Adhara. So I could have banished Shatana off of Taye. So if he ogred me, I would have had Adhara to add back the Shatana, and then I could have summoned Shatana out my hand, and I could have synchronated. And I just didn't see that play till after. But that's a scenario. Like I could have saw him, like those lines have to run through your head during an event. Like, because if they don't, it will cost you a game. Like it just cost me that. It cost me that game. It cost me that game earlier. So like
a good example though of what I mean is, like, let's say you sit down, you win the die roll, and you're going first, right? Your opening hand, and this is literally just an opening hand that I drew with my current deck. Your opening hand is something like Moyi, Longyan, Ashuna, and then Ash and Ghost Ogre, right? So that hand is infinite possibilities, right? So how do you sit down and look at a hand like that and just decide what your first play is when there's so many options? It's like turn 0.
Yeah, I just read every scenario that could happen. So what I would do is normal summon Moye, reveal Longyan. And the reason why I would normal summon Moye, reveal Longyan is because, okay, usually in the Sword Soul deck, when your opponent normal summons Moye and reveals, they usually reveal like another card that's not Longyan, because you want your opponent to imperm or Valor you. And then like in response to that, on resolution, you would summon your Longyan and go for a Synchro 8 anyways. Revealing the Longyan pretty much like makes your opponent think, man, this might be their only play. Like, why would you reveal Longyan? And like, there's a higher chance that you get impermed or Valored on your Moye at this point. And then in the scenario, like they're like, and like if I don't get impermed or Valored, that's fine. My Moye just resolved, which is great for me because now I'm making a Synchro 8 and I'm drawing a card. Or I could summon my Longyan and make Baron and then do Moye, which is probably what I would do. At that point, I would probably if that did resolve, I would probably summon Longyan, discard Adhara, or Ashuna. I mean, because you had Ashuna, right?
Yeah, Ashuna.
So yeah, discard Ashuna, summon itself, and then from that point on, I would probably go for Baron, and then go Ashuna, summon Adhara, make Monk, make Shishao, search Blackout, add back follow up with the Adhara, set the Blackout pass, because that just plays around everything in the safest way possible. And then
it's crazy that you say that, because what's funny is my first line that I think of when I see that hand is completely different. My first line that I think of is summon Ashuna, make a Monk, normal summon one of my hand traps, and then go for a Haki Fibrax line. And then I've got Longyan Moyi for follow up. You know? And I know that it's a completely different line, a completely different train of thought. But and what you said is honestly probably correct, is to use the Moyi for bait. That way,
it's the safest line because that's just one scenario. If I get impermed or Valored, or if I don't or if they do the scenario I just said is if they do nothing. Well, if they imperm or Valor me, then I summon Longyan, discard Ashuna. Then after that, I can make a Synchro 8, right? And then from there I can add Blackout, and that plays around Nibiru, because that's 4 summons exactly. So now I have Blackout, Shishao, plus 2 hand traps, and I just played around Nibiru. Okay? And then there's other scenarios where it's like, okay, let's say they don't imperm or Valor me. Let's say they ogre me, which I even thought of. So if they ogre me at this point, I go special summon Longyan, discard Ashuna. Then I turn the Longyan and the token into Baron. And then I use the Ashuna in my graveyard to summon Shatana. Then I use Shatana and I use the token to make a Synchro 8. Then that Synchro 8 is Shishao, and that searches me for Blackout. And then I end on all of it. Blackout, the Synchro 8, Baron, and then 2 hand traps in my hand. And that's if I want to play around Nibiru. Now let's say my opponent's playing 60 cards, and I know what deck they're playing, and I have a strong feeling they don't have Nibiru. Well, then at that point, I'm just gonna go special summon Shatana from my deck, and then turn my Longyan and my token into the new Synchro 10, and then summon Shishao, then draw a card, then search for Blackout, and then that's 4 interruptions now, plus Blackout, plus 2 hand traps in my hand.
Yeah. And see, that kind of brings me into another question, which was actually not one of the questions we had written down, but now I'm curious. So how do you decide when to risk it for the biscuit, so to say, right? So how do you decide when you're like, okay, I see this, I'm like, for example, I think that like if going into a Hauki Fibrax line early has the highest chance of ending in like a crazy board, just because Hauki Fibrax is just broken. So how do you decide when to just jump into one of those lines, or do you mainly try to keep those crazy blowout lines more of like follow up? And
In
just
this deck,
kinda
I try
go
to keep it as
safer
follow up.
plays?
Like my main goal in this deck is to pretty much play in the safest way possible. Now there is hands where there's only one line and you just have to go for it. But like the way I just sequenced my hand, I just sequenced it to play around literally every single hand trap. Because if I got impermed or Veilered, I knew what to do. If I got ogred, I knew what to do. And there was never a scenario where I got Nibiru'd there. There just wasn't a scenario where I got Nibiru'd there. I played around it every single time.
This truly proves that some people are just built different.
Like,
Well, I mean, it's just hearing your train of thought on it versus when I first picked up the deck and I first started doing things, it's just completely different, right?
it's a completely different type of playstyle, type of deck for this format specifically, because everyone's trying to go for this sort of combo line, where I'm trying to go for some sort of like control based line that plays around hand traps very well, because like in this format, I think like everyone's playing like a ridiculous amount of hand traps, and I wanted to play a deck that played through those hand traps in the best way, shape, or form, and like I wanted to play a deck that could pretty much like play in the correct pattern. And usually a lot of the cards in my deck were cards that allowed me to play through hand traps even more, like Circle just allowed me to play through Ogre and Veiler and Imperm a lot, like a lot better, even like through Nib and even certain interactions going second, like DPE or Heretic Seal, which comes up a lot actually. And another card which is actually really strong right now as a follow-up card is actually Vessel. Vessel is probably like one of the strongest cards right now, because before it wasn't, because like a lot of people were playing like Imperm Veiler, but in this format everyone's playing Ogre Nib, and like Ogre, when you Ogre a normal summon, you end on a token, and when you end on a token, you could activate Vessel. So
I hate Vessel so much.
Oh, dude, that card's so broken.
so Vessel's ridiculous, and if you get Nibiru'd, well, Vessel literally allows you to continue to synchro play, like synchro plays. Like you
Vessel just turns into like the best card in your deck.
Yes, summon Fiber, or you can go special summon Vishuda out your hand, then use Ashuna from the grave, summon Adhara, and then after that you make a Synchro 8. Like there's just like so many different lines you could do with those cards, and like that's how I built my deck. So like if I got Ogred, I had Vessel in my deck, I had Circle in my deck, I had Ashuna and Shatana, because if I get Ogre, those all get me to Shatana, and Shatana is a Synchro 8. So all those cards allowed me to play through Ogre, right? So now I had three Circle, 3 Emergence, 3 Long Yawn, and all those cards allowed me to play through Imperm. So and Imperm Veiler. So I had 9 ways to play around Imperm Veiler. I had 10 ways to play around Ogre in my main deck.
Yeah.
Like to play through those cards. So like it was just very hard for me to ever lose to one hand trap. It just like rarely ever happened. And the thing is about the Sword Soul deck, like usually it's one hand trap that they get to use on you, and then like the second hand trap is very like underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like Meg 1. Because like it's like, do I Veiler this Shishao now? Do I Imperm the Shishao because I'm Imperming a negate? Yeah. It's crazy. Like the deck is like, you get super rewarded for playing super correct, and like the match I lost was literally to like getting Scythe DPE'd. I opened 0 hand traps, and like the math like says otherwise. I should open one like 90% of the time, but the 10% got to me. I opened 0. It's like there's a 10% chance I opened 0, and I ate the 10%.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. To be fair, 10% is pretty negligible.
But it just sucks that like over the course of like a 15 to 20 round tournament, like
it had
happen.
happened in Top Cut, and it had to happen against the base deck. That's the difference. Like it could have happened against any other matchup in Top Cut, but it can't happen in this matchup against the base deck.
That just sucks.
Like let's say I found like in my hand that I opened, my hand was great against Prank Kids. I opened great against Prank Kids. I opened Call by the Grave. So against Prank Kids, that would have been amazing. But against the base deck, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's just rough, man. Well, I got one last question for you, just real quick. So like, what kind of like pre-event rituals or routine do you have? Is there anything like, oh, I go to this restaurant and eat, or anything like that?
Or maybe something that you do to get yourself in the right mindset
yeah.
for the tournament, you know?
I would like to say that the events I had did the best in. Was well rested, I was well hydrated, and honestly, like when going to an event, all I can recommend is when you're eating your lunch, just try not to eat anything heavy, like something that's just gonna get you way too filled up and get you
Sleepy or tired.
like it'll get you sleepy, it'll get you sluggish, and like that's not what you're trying to do when you're
No
playing an event,
turkey sandwiches.
yeah, because like you don't want to ever like miss a play, and like that would happen occasionally, like if you overate. So like what I try to do is just stay hydrated, like eat snacks, like usually like that's what I do, just eat a couple snacks, like that's it. Stay hydrated and just stay focused. Rest is good, like rest is always good, but sometimes I lack it, and for smaller events I lack it more, but for bigger events I try not to.
You're right. So the last thing we're going to do is, this is something we do in every episode. We like to go over our podcast question of the day. We do a new one for every episode. So our previous podcast question of the day, because we like to read out the answers that we got and kind of talk if we have a guest with it, which was, what do you think is the best deck of the current format and why? A lot of people said different things. My favorite answer was, this is a trick question. There's no way you can fit the name of any singular deck into a whole tweet. That's funny. Yeah.
I even made a joke about it in our last episode's description.
Yeah. So a little bit of a
Tangent.
Easter egg for if you haven't seen that, go read that. But I think that a lot of people agree that the pile deck is what they believe is the best deck of the format. I like your insight though, Hani, on specifically going for something with the highest level of consistency. But we have a lot of people saying things like Brave Prank and Based and Tenny Brave variations, things like that. And then of course we have your random answers like Warriors and Pendulum and more Pendulum and Melfi Tri Brigade and Salamangrate. But I said on the last episode that I think that Based is maybe, or like the Pile is maybe the best deck, but I think that there's maybe more like closer to like a 40 card list that might accomplish it. But I guess at that point you just play Sword Soul Tenyi because it's way more consistent,
Yep.
So
If I'm gonna say what's the best deck right now, I would say it's the base deck.
Yeah.
Off of just like what people like. I mean, off of just like the format, it has the highest ceiling, and I feel like it plays through the most. But for me, it's like I think when signing up for a tournament, you want to sign up with the deck that's going to be the most consistent. That's going to control. You're going to be able to control most of your losses, and that's what like I try to accomplish like in a format like this. Yeah, these decks all have higher ceilings. They're all very strong. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. Like consistency definitely plays a part of your tournament, and like I feel like in a deck like Based or the Phantom deck or like these decks like that are being played right now, there's a lot of luck involved as well. Like a lot of luck is in hope you don't brick, because like there is just like a lot of games where your deck gets the best of you and you just lose the tournament because you actually just drew unplayable all like. and sometimes it could just be one card off from your hand that stops you from winning the game, So
Yeah. So this will be our last question, and this is actually the podcast question of the day. But I also would like you to answer it, which is when you duel, how much of your duel do you feel is pre-planned combo lines versus improv? So that'll be the podcast question of the day. But I'm also really curious to hear your answer specifically, Hani.
So I feel like going first, it's a lot of your combo line, just based off of doing like you have, depending on the deck you're playing. Like if you know your combo, that's what you're doing. Like that's everyone's first play. Everyone's first play is actually a combo line. Like it's a line like that your deck does, right? That's what I would assume. Like everyone has a certain line in their deck that they go for turn one. Okay, but the thing is, what do you do after? And like that's where most people struggle. Most people learn the basic combo line. They understand the like how to set up the board, but after that is where people struggle. And honestly, like you might not see it, but like if you play a lot and like if you play like every single day and you play nonstop and you're playing at a consistent level, trust me, you'll see it from everybody all around. I'm talking about from everybody, even myself. Like sometimes it'll happen. Like it'll happen. It happens to everybody. You'll literally see it. Like if you you'll mess up after your turn one play because you don't know what to do. Yeah, you don't know what to do after your turn one play, and that happens a lot, especially like when picking up like a new deck. So like that's where the testing comes in. You prepare for those those lines that happen afterwards.
I would say that a lot of tournament success can be based off of knowing necessarily how to not necessarily improvise and play on the fly, although that does play a factor, but basically not having to do that, right? So like being knowledgeable enough about your deck and about your opponent's deck and the format as a whole that when you go into these situations, you're not improvising, but you're actually playing with intention. Is that something that you would agree with?
Yes. You know the line. You know what's about to happen because you put yourself in. You've been in that scenario too many times to not know what's going to happen. Like you know what line to go for. You're not freestyling. You're only freestyling if you just picked up the deck the night before and you're going into the tournament and you only know the combo, like the main combo going first. Like and then after that, everything after you're just like you're pretty much just like figuring out throughout throughout the tournament.
Yeah. But, which is like dangerous.
Which I've done before. I'd never recommend it. Like I know people that have topped doing that. But no, forget that, dude. Like I crash course somebody like a Goki combo and the Goki deck like all in one night right before the 200th YCS, and he topped. So.
Wow.
Well, Arnold 6 months. 6 months he didn't play, and he became a YCS champion.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
And it was all thanks to your coaching.
That's it. Which we're gonna plug again right here at the end of the podcast. So. I don't mean to do your plugs for you, Hani, but I will say if you are interested in coaching from one of the maybe the most decorated player of the last maybe 4 to 5 years of Yu-Gi-Oh, is that a fair thing to say? One of, if not the. It's
an argument that could be made.
Yeah, is that fair, Hani? Is that?
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah. So if you would like coaching from one of the most decorated players of the last 5 years at least, and probably goes down in the pantheon of one of the all-time greats at this point. If you would like coaching from one of the best players in the game, please be sure to check out his Metafy coaching. It is, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what the prices are. I haven't looked, but whatever it is, it's a bargain. So please, because I'm just going to say the information that you're going to get in that coaching is worth way more. It's invaluable.
It's worth its weight in maximum gold.
So be sure to check out his Metafy in the link down below. And of course, check out, it was Luxury Games, right?
Yep. You can check out Luxury Gaming like on Instagram or on Facebook. We're pretty much all over. We run tournaments. Luxury Gaming, check us out. Also check out my boy Pack TCG. on Twitch, on YouTube. Subscribe to him.
Absolutely.
That man is the greatest person to learn from. Like, if you're up and coming in the game, and like he honestly puts out content that other people wouldn't put out. Like, this is real Yu-Gi-Oh. This is what we're actually doing. Like, we don't sugarcoat things. Like, I go on there, Pac goes on there, and we talk about what's actually going on in the game. Like we don't sugarcoat things. Pac said he was playing DDD at the YCS. What did he do? He played DDD at the YCS. We're not secretive. We're here to help the community. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And we're trying to make big things happen for the upcoming, for the future. We're trying to run big tournaments, Master Duel tournaments. We're trying to run IRL tournaments. So check out Pac TCG and check out Luxury Gaming, because we're trying to take the game to the next level.
Absolutely. So you will find links to Hani's Metafy, Luxury Gaming, and of course Pac's Twitch channel. If you aren't already following Pac on Twitch, what are you doing, man? Come on. This is the best competitive content on the internet, in my opinion anyway. I've been watching Pac since basically we got back into the game, and he is just an invaluable source of competitive content and competitive knowledge. So if you are looking for that, be sure to check all of that out in the description down below. In addition to all of that, in the description down below, you'll also find, again, our TCG Player affiliate link, our Patreon link, links to our Discord, our Twitter, and everything that you need to get in contact with us. And one last little thing, again, as of today, our playmat is for sale on the Imperium Duelist website. If you are interested in getting that, please be sure to go in and check it out. Let us know if you buy the playmat, and we're going to read out the names of the people that buy the playmat on the podcast. Just let us know that you bought the playmat. Send us a picture of it, whatever, showing that you bought it, and we're going to put together a list and thank everybody on the podcast personally. So in the meantime, thank you everybody so much for listening, and we will be back next Tuesday with another episode.
With a whole bunch of new cards.
Yeah, a lot of new cards, because while we were doing this episode, another archetype got released.
Oh boy!
Yeah, so there's more coming. So thank you again, Hani, specifically for coming on. We appreciate it, bud.
Yep, no problem. Anytime.
All
It's
right.
a very intellectually stimulating conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to put it. It made my brain hurt sometimes because it was so in depth. But thank you all so much for listening to today's extra long episode, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care, everybody.